No,
Well, I have a question for Jeff,
yeah,
actually.
yeah.
So, in the poetry session, you had talked about how you shared a story about a conversation you had with Erich, where or somebody had a conversation with Erich, and the end result was Erich saying that he and the other Mandali are like chalices, where they are just containers holding from which Baba's love overflows, and kind of like for us to come and get glimpses and sips of, but they themselves never take a sip of that love. My question is I can't. Maybe it's not even a question. I just have to say I feel so dumbfounded by how that even works. Because for me and my relationship to Baba, so much of it is about me picking up little crumbs of of love from him to fuel me and nourish me to then want more. I can't even imagine
Yeah.
being the chalice and then not even sipping of that great love. Like I just can't even fathom that. So
Yeah. Well, I'll just describe this exchange that took place that you're referring to. There's a guy named Dan Ladinsky. We were roommates. He used to live here in Myrtle Beach, but he would stay at Marizot for periods of time. And one time he was with Erich, and and Danny is a little bit provocative. He's not your conventional character.
No
But he
way.
said to Erich, you Mondali take a nip now and then. NIP, you take a nip now and then. And Erich says, what do you mean by that? Says, you take a shot of his bliss. And so what makes you say that? He says, well, sometimes I see it, that bliss in the eyes of the Mandali, some of the Mandali. And Erich said, Danny, we are the chalices that hold the beloved's wine. Others may come and help themselves, but for us, we never take a drop.
Wow.
We are the chalices that hold the beloved's wine. Others may come and help themselves, but for us, we never take a drop. It's all for everyone else, and they don't want anything for themselves. I mean, this is kind of the postgraduate Baba. Whereas, we were trying to break into the side of the wine barrel and get, whatever bit of wine we can get. But yeah, I mean, there comes a time when you want what you have, you want others to have. You feel complete in yourself. You don't need anything. And yet you feel whole and complete. So so everything you have is for others.
yeah, I would love to know that experience.
Yeah.
Maybe I can say I've had a glimpse of that here and there, but for that to be my experience, what a lovely thing.
Yeah. No, I think Baba is drawing us all toward that. I mean, just to give you an example, and I've mentioned this before, I would go in to see Kitty Davy, and invariably within about 45 seconds, we were over here talking about me and my life. And, I mean, over the years, that was always the case. And so when I started working at the center, I said, I'm going to find out how Kitty's doing. I'm going to get over into Kitty. How are you doing? How is it today? How has your day been and everything? And invariably we'd be over here after about a minute or two talking about me. I tried it about 3 times, and every time we wound up talking about me. Why? Because her interest and focus on me was so much greater than my focus on her. And so it was I was trying to swim against a current of selflessness that she had. And I just couldn't do it. I'd just be pinned back against the wall. She was fine in herself. Even if she was in pain, she was fine in herself. And I was more important. Whoever was in front of her was more important than herself. You know, that's the way. That's the magnificence of Baba, that he creates souls like that. And I feel he's going to do that to each of us. He's working on making us that way. Purely selfless. Yeah.
I love that image. That's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
That reminds me, that's a good illustration. It reminds me of when Agnes Barron at Ojai had the big fire that wiped everything out. I went down there because I was concerned about her, and connected with her in Ojai. She was living with a friend, and she immediately got in the car with me because she wanted me to see the property. And we drove up the mountain to, where Baba visited on Sulphur Mountain in Ojai. And the place was still smoldering with smoke. Everything was, it was still burning. And we were walking down this path because she wanted me to see the damage to Baba's tree and stuff. And I finally said to her, I said, Agnes, I said, how are you doing? I mean, really, how are you doing in the middle of all this? And she looked at me strangely and she said, that's not the question I have. She said, my question is, how are you going to react when something like this happens to you?
Wow.
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 I know.
And I thought to myself, wow, this woman is not concerned about how I feel about her. In the midst of all of this, she's assuming the role, as she was in my life, as a spiritual mentor. And I thought that was very beautiful. In the midst of the most devastating thing, that she was more concerned about me and the important thing in my life to her, which was my spirituality. That was a very good lesson I learned. So it's kind of the same thing. They're chalices and we can dip, but they're not concerned about themselves.
Yeah. No, it's something to behold. Yeah. What others may have something to say, but I have some things to mention about Agnes Barron, but I won't do that at this moment.
We'll have to have an Agnes Barron talk sometime.
Yeah. I mean,
that reminds me of a story. I don't know if it is relevant. We were in a spiritual center, and then Robert Dreyfus was giving a talk. And in that talk, he mentions how Mandalay react. They don't hold anything long. So it goes like this. Robert walks in after this arduous journey, doing all kinds of things. And he meets Baba, and then one day he ends up being in the trust office, and Adike was with him at that time. And while this is going on, suddenly, I guess it's Pendu who walks in, or Padri, yeah, Padri. Oh, so you know the story.
Yeah.
Correct me if I get it wrong, but so there appears to be some problem with some plumbing or something that's going on around the trust office. And then Padri is so shaken and so upset. He walks in and then starts shouting at Adi K, about him or about somebody. I mean, about things that are not going on right, and then he fumes, frets, and it appears as if they're actually going to end up in a fist fight, and and while all this being obviously watched by our friend Robert there, and as soon as he's done, he just walks out in a huff. And once this happens, Adike then turns to Robert and puts hand on his shoulder and says, "Are you okay?" So,
Well, and also added to that, you know, he said because they were speaking Gujarati too, and they were yelling at each other. And then say Padre storms out, and then Adi looks over at Robert Dreyfus and says, "Did that bother you?" And Robert Dreyfus said, "Oh, God, I just felt like sinking through the floor. I wish I wasn't even here. I was so uncomfortable and everything." I looks over at him and says, "Well, it didn't bother us."
So that's how it is. Concern for others.
Yeah.
It doesn't really really budge them at all. Yeah.
Jeff, there are many stories of Eric Shankar also like this, that he's like upset with somebody, and within the 1 second he's with the next person, he's just normal. He just switches over.
Yeah. Well, Bao Kalchuri, they were asked, Bao used to lose his temper, and Erich, would sometimes lose his temper. But Bao Kalchuri made this observation of Erich. The Erich was I gotta say, try to say it. It was 100% mock anger with Erich. He said about himself, my anger is only 80% mock anger. 20% is real anger, and 80% is mock anger. But with Erich, it was 100% mock anger. He'd express anger, but there wasn't the barb in there that hurts people, So I know one time Erich got angry at me, and he was yelling at me, but I didn't feel shamed at all. I mean, I kind of got his point, but there was nothing hurtful in the anger, which is not the case with almost all human beings,
Wow.
because they really mean it.
Yeah, that's true.
They mean to hurt in a certain way, because they're hurt usually.
Exactly.
Well, that leads to a question, Jeff. How not to feel angry? I mean, not be consumed by it, but just be, express that mock anger. I mean,
Yeah.
Anything you have some clues from Mandali or anybody on that?
Well, I mean, I find if you can express the anger early on before it starts simmering, as a mock anger, you make your point, but you don't do any damage to the others or create bindings for yourself. But that's very hard, because what happens is you hold the anger, and then the anger starts to build up, and by the time you express it, it actually hurts somebody.
Hey, Jeff,
Yeah,
I was in Bao's office when that took place.
yeah,
And Bao said exactly what you said, that
yeah,
he only gets angry maybe 10% of the time, the rest is just pretending, but Eric pretends 100% of the time. But Bao used to put on a good show anytime Greg Ruff or Ward came into his office.
yeah.
There was a show coming on of a
Yeah.
display of anger.
It's okay.
or
I just wanted to
pretend
check
anger.
if they're recording or not. They're recording. So
Yeah.
I can watch it.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff,
Yeah.
we got a picture of a tree that was cut that had Baba's image in it near the barn. You know anything about that?
No, you mean just recently?
Yeah, I got it from VJ in India, and we showed it. I don't know anything about it though. They said it was near the barn, and some tree was cut, and there were like, you know, slices of it. One of them had an image of Baba's face in it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I can imagine.
Maybe it's not recent. I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I hadn't heard, but I can imagine because there were a lot of dead trees. If you cut them, you could have Baba's image on one of the cuts.
Mm.
Yeah. Anybody have anything to share? Or Dinku, how are you doing over there?
Yeah, I have a joke.
Very.
What's that?
Oh, who is that? Dinku, you wanna talk?
No, Jeff just asked me how I was doing, and I said, fine. Jeff, I loved your singing last night. Well,
Oh,
yeah, and you know, when you were singing the first song,
yeah.
I don't know why, I just thought you looked like Justin Hayward singing it.
Oh. This was actually their evening, but our morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Morning
I hope you'll give us another song today.
7 a.m.
I sing all the Moody Blues songs, and then Jeff has been told he looks like Justin Hayward.
Yeah, he did. He really did remind me of him.
Yeah. Well, oh, hey, Alan has shown up. Oh my God. I must have got by the security guards.
How's it going, Jeff? How you doing?
Good. Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you, I mean, if there aren't any questions, I'll tell you something from Agnes Barron. Because, I mean, I mentioned it this morning with the Bombay people, but so Agnes, as Larry was talking about, she was had a very prickly personality, quite opinionated, you know, kind of put a number of people off, but she had a heart of gold. She was like, you know, she would give anybody the shirt off her back, but she had a personality. It was a little bit difficult. And so when Baba was there in 1956, when she was driving him from Meher Mount to LA, which is about an hour and a half, in the car, she said to Baba, some people don't like me. And, you know, kind of implied that there are more than just a few that were kind of put off by her. But Baba turned around and said, but I like you. You know, so hey, that's great. You know, Baba liked her. So that was a relief to her. But then when they got to LA, because she was driving, Bob was staying in LA. And in LA, she got into an altercation with Ivy Deuce. Ivy Deuce, Murshida of Sufism Reoriented. A little altercation. And then later on when she was with Baba, she said, Baba, you said I should love everyone. We should love everyone. I can't love everyone. You know, what are you going to do about that? She challenges him. Baba said, with Erich interpreting, she said, Agnes, you love everyone, you just don't like everyone. And she said, I can live with that. She said, Baba, I can live with that. But isn't that great?
What a beauty.
Yeah. Because we really, I mean, I think this is important. I mean, I found it, I mentioned this morning, I used to carry around a quote of Baba's in my wallet back in the 70s until it eventually shredded, where Baba said, all differences between one another are merely superficial and cannot affect the love we feel for each other deep down.
Hmm.
So all differences between one another are merely superficial. You know, male, female, you know, Indian, American, you know, rich, poor, businessman, pauper. All differences are superficial and cannot affect the love we feel for each other deep down. And to me, that I felt that had to be true. That was a truth, that we already love each other, but we buy into our conditioning that says, oh, I don't like that kind of person. I mean, our conditioning doesn't harmonize with their sanskars over there. But that's just at a sanskaric level. You know, like, in other words, Agnes Barron, that certain people she didn't like, but she actually, I would say, loved everybody. I mean, she would give the shirt off her back. She had a heart of gold.
She did.
She would have done, even for Ivy Deuce, she would have done anything for her spiritual welfare that would be helpful. So, I mean, I think, I mean, I'm talking my personal feeling. I think it's important to realize that we really do love everyone, you know, and our sanskaras make it seem like we don't. And
Yeah.
we believe our sanskaras over our inherent nature, you know, which is.
I was going to say that makes a lot of sense, because there are some, I can picture it this way. The vision I have of it is there are some personalities that push up against our personality so largely that it's hard to feel and sense the deeper sense of ourselves, to then be able to know that there's love between you and that person. You know, it's like the rubbing of personalities are like two tectonic plates pushing up against each other and creating a mountain. Sometimes that mountain is so large it's hard to feel what's underneath. So
Yeah, it's.
Agnes played her part well. This is Paula.
Yeah.
Agnes played her part well. Baba called her his watchdog.
Yeah.
And she was good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I have a souvenir for you, Jeff.
uh-huh.
This is the hubcap from the car that Agnes drove to pick up Mayor Baba in Los Angeles
Oh,
and
wow.
bring him to Ojai.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, she gave it to me as a souvenir.
Yeah. Lovely.
It's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, great. No,
I'll hang it up again.
I think to affirm that we're really loving, and our conditioning is something different. It's on a different track. In other words, our conditioning might like or dislike somebody, and that's not who we really are. But we consult that. We say, oh, I don't like that person. What? And so we're just consulting our sanskars. You might dislike somebody when you first meet them, but 3 months down the road, they may become your best friend and your lifelong friend. But the sanskars are so unreliable, because we really do love each other.
The opposite is true also, Jeff.
What's that?
Opposite is true also. That 3 months on the road, you might hate that person.
Yeah.
You might love that person when you first met, you get along. In 3 months down the road, you guys hate each other, you want to kill each other.
Yeah.
Or a year on the road.
But yeah. But like I say, sometimes I'm really talking where the love breaks through, and not the, feeling good about somebody is different from having love. But it's I don't know. I just feel like.
Well, the ego gives the best of a lot of people, so that's why you have also many like and dislike, and so I think it's the ego thing that we relate to each other through our egos instead of to our presence and to our consciousness and to our loving divine God inside of ourselves. So when we relate to others through our egos, then there is this,
Yeah.
I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this person, I don't like whatever, So
Yeah. Erich had a good thing to say in Mandalay Hall one time. Someone said, but Erich, there's some people I just don't like. And other people kind of laughed and everything, kind of acknowledging that same thing. And Erich got serious and he said, you may dislike somebody, but never assert that you have the right to dislike anyone. So it takes away the righteousness out of it. You might dislike somebody, but that is something we got to overcome.
yeah.
Or at
Sorry,
least
Jeff.
not justify it. Yeah.
Jeff, can you repeat what Eric said? You may dislike somebody.
You may dislike somebody, but never assert that you have the right to dislike anyone. Yeah. Because if you think it's your right to dislike somebody, it's going to be hard to like them. Because that's such a justification.
Yeah.
But I feel like to get in touch with the truth that we really love everyone is a better place to operate from than, oh, I don't love people and I'm just not going to be able to love them, or I love that person but not that person. I think that it's better to think that we love and then try to operate from that part of ourself.
Is it possible that we can avoid people that we don't go very well with? Is that a better approach?
Stay away from them.
Yeah. There are a lot of Baba people, more than a few, who have told me that they would be very happy and contented if there weren't certain people in their lives.
Well, there's the poem that was read of Jeff's tonight during the poetry session. There's one line about describing what spirituality is, and I'm not going to do a very good job with this, so please correct me, Jeff, as I say this. But spirituality is let's see. I'm sorry. Let me try that again. In a boatyard, right? Maneuvering around all the boats and not hitting them is not spirituality. It is growing and expanding until you sense yourself as the boat and the boatyard and all the other boats. That's the real work of spirituality. And I really was touched by that because of how often I try to navigate my life by being the boat, trying to avoid all the other boats. And not avoid in the sense like I don't want to interact with people, but I try to act and behave in a way to not stir up any kind of trouble, thinking that that's really the spiritual path and the spiritual way forward. But it misses then, or it only further continues the separation between myself and the other person, rather than allowing for me to expand into really feeling and knowing myself as the other person just the same. So that my focus isn't trying to not disrupt somebody other person, it's not to disrupt myself in that person, or Baba in that person, more, to bring it more fully, bring it back to Baba. So I really appreciated that viewpoint and that feeling and that sense.
Yeah, maybe I'll see if I can find that poem. Let me just see.
Whose poem is that, Jake? Do you remember?
That was Jeff's poem.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I'll see if I went on a poetry binge for about 3 weeks and I wrote a lot of poems very quickly. The title of it is, it's a very short one, Boat or Marina. The spiritual journey is not about steering our little boat safely through a busy marina without bumping into anything. We have to become the entire marina itself. Spirituality is not about going somewhere, but about expansion of being, so that little by little, everything in creation finds its loving place in our heart. That's the poem.
Beautiful, Jeff. Very nice.
So it's not like going from point A to point B. It's, if you love birds and you get to know all their names and their habits and their song, then, and you get so much into that, after a while, birds are flying around inside of you. You've incorporated them into you, and your being has expanded. And anybody that you can love, Erich used to say, from time to time, this whole world is yours, but you have to claim it. Through love, you bring what's on the outside inside. And it becomes yours with a capital Y. You might say it becomes yours and Baba's. Anything you love and you incorporate in yourself, you become that much larger. So I don't know if that, I mean, that's, but it takes a tremendous audacity to go to do something like that.
What does that mean to like expand yourself, right? So I was just right now trying to practice that in myself. So the sensation I work with is trying to expand my heart to be open to or feel connected to the thing. So for example, like the chairs and the tables in this kitchen that I'm sitting in was one of the things I was focusing on. Is that the idea? Is that the notion, or is there something more to it than that?
Well, I think, I mean, any way through love, you can expand. Through loving, you know, you have your children. Prior to that, children weren't as intimate probably to you as they are now, little children, because you have your own children. They've opened that world up to you so that, you know, as I was saying earlier, your heart becomes a playground for kids. You know, through
I like that.
yeah. And your interior becomes a place where birds can fly around.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
can I share an experience about with something you're talking about, how things expand with children, because that's an area I really love. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, yeah.
Yesterday, we haven't gotten together very much because of this virus thing going around, but I went with my daughter and my granddaughter and my great-granddaughter to the park. And I was pushing her in a swing, and a little boy wanted to come up, little 4-year-old boy wanted to come over and push her. So I told him he could, so he pushed her in the swing, and he followed us all around, and I let him help with my great-granddaughter that was 3 years old. And so eventually I had about 5 or 6 little 3- and 4-year-olds all around me playing, and we'd go from one place to another. And when it was time to leave, the mother said she wanted to talk to me. And she said, you know, his grandmother died about a year ago, and he just thought you should be his grandmother. And that was just about the greatest compliment.
Yeah.
And but you don't know. I mean, love is all around you. Everywhere you go, you never know. Like, because Baba works through us. And how I see it is, it's like the ocean. God is the ocean of love. And when you start a spiritual path with love, you go ankle deep. Yeah, I mean, what's ahead of you is going through anger and judgment and fear and jealousy and greed and selfishness and all these things. As you learn to look at those and deal with those, more and more you are able to hold love inside of yourself. And so you go out knee deep until eventually you're drowned in this whole ocean and there's nothing but love. And you need to do nothing because you are that. It's effortless. Like, I'm not trying to love anybody, but God through me loves, because you've absorbed all those things, because you've replaced it with the things that keeps you from love's presence. So But that's just, I use that as an example because it's just, it's amazing to me how Baba works through me. So I never, because I mean, I feel love when I pray and I meditate and when I'm home and reading Baba stuff. But when I'm outside, I'm just being present to wherever I am in silence and being part of whatever there is. But God's working just as much in me and through me, doing nothing as doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
Can I say something? So, you know, 2 days ago, something happened where I really got stirred up in a conversation. And I had the opposite Marie experience where I don't know if it was righteousness and I was really giving it to Baba, but boy, was I angry at this person for the, I don't want to go into detail. I can, it's work related. And I was talking to a physician and I was trying to get him to understand why I thought this child that I was working with needed a certain treatment. And he had the authority to, you know, I get stirred up just talking about it. He had the authority to say whether he should get this treatment or not.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, the decision he made had a big impact in this child's life. And so I knew the result is in your hand, Baba, I kept saying. But I just was so upset for like 4 hours. I couldn't do any more work. And it was all inside. You know, I wasn't yelling or anything, but I was just boiling inside over this situation. And no matter how much I was repeating Baba's name, my mind would go to, and he said that? I can't believe he said that, you know? I was just going over this scenario. And I said, well, where's the love in that? Boy, was I like, I had no love for this person.
Well, it sounds like you had real love there, and your sense of love got violated by somebody that was making a decision that didn't have the same empathy and sensitivity that you had.
Yeah, I was mad because I was like, I couldn't believe the decision he was making, and he doesn't even know this family. He doesn't know this child, but he's somewhere, not even in the same town. He's on a phone.
Yeah.
You know, so, but still, I wish that I could have just, you know, said, all right, Baba, this is what you want. He's making this decision and I surrender to your decision. And I wish I was more at peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we all know that kind of experience, and you did the best you can in these situations, and it's not, you're not going to just be detached like that and let it go. It has to work its way through, because one of your deeper values of love has been violated by just a mental decision by probably some arrogant doctor. But just think of all the time. I mean, there's so many instances of that in my own life, and I'm sure so many people.
A lifetime of them, you know.
Yeah, and it deepens you as a human being.
We had to work hard on those.
It's understandable that you feel that way.
Yeah.
You know, really.
To experience God's love still there, it takes an experience of being that love and knowing, seeing that love. How can you put it in words? God is always in that being, no matter what they're doing, and they're perfect love, just as you're perfect love. And no matter what anger or judgment or fears are going on the outside are illusion, that love is always the depth of the ocean of Baba's love. And so learning to forgive ourselves, our judgments, our anger, whatever that is probably the hardest forgiveness we have to do. We're so hard on ourselves. But that is probably one of the biggest lessons I've come to understand. I mean, I've been on this path many lifetimes to get some of the insights I feel I have in this lifetime. And I mean, I've really gone through a lot of work in this lifetime, and I know many others. But that's one thing I've learned, that no matter how bad it is, even like say the virus that's here, so many people are learning to go inside instead of making the outside world their reality. There's goodness behind everything. There's love behind it, even when we can't see it or realize that that love is always there. And so you don't know anything about this person. I bet if you got to know this doctor or knew about his life or something, if you just get a glimpse of love, just a glimpse. And the reason why I had this experience is my husband died about 4 years ago, and he was a devout atheist, and it was always my hope that he was really a Buddhist, more into Buddhism. And so we had a lot of disagreements over our life together. We were together about 60 years off and on. And, but about a week before he died, I took him out of the nursing home. He had dementia. He didn't remember anything or talk very much at that point, but I took him out every week for ice cream. That was his favorite thing. He still liked ice cream. And I had the radio on, and it stopped the car. So we were stuck in 104 degrees on a hot summer day, and I needed to get him back to where he was going. And the people to get the car to start, so they'd be there in 15 minutes, and an hour and a half later, they weren't there. So I got somebody else. I just asked a stranger to jump the car. And as we drove back with him to a stop sign, and I was talking to myself, and I was beside myself. I was so angry that they didn't come to jump the car, because I said it was an emergency. So anyhow, I'm having my hands on the steering wheel, and I'm talking to myself, and he doesn't talk anymore. And he's just sitting there, and he reaches over and he takes my hand and he pulls it over to his heart, and he holds it on his heart. And in that moment, it was like this blackboard, like a white blackboard appeared. And it was like every grievance we ever had, every word we ever spoke that wasn't kind, everything that happened in our whole lifetime was on that board, everything. And it was like God just took his hand and wiped it clean. And there was nothing. We just sat there, and there was nothing but love between us. Nothing but love. And we just sat there maybe for a minute or two in that divine love, knowing we were one in love, no matter what had happened in the past, no matter whatever happens in the future, that love was there between us. And so that is what makes me feel and know that love is the bottom line. So he did die a week after that, and I felt that was his saying goodbye at that time, and everything had been healed. I felt we'd had many lifetimes together, and that was the completion of this cycle and this lifetime with him, that we had both been committed to our family and to our children. No matter what differences we had, we both 100% put our whole heart and soul into being there as a good foundation for our children. And we accomplished that. We put some of our own desires and needs and longings out of our mind to serve the good of the whole. And I feel we did accomplished something really wonderful in that. So
Beautiful.
Yeah. You know what the Mandali would often say in a situation like yours, Payam? Endure, endure, endure.
Now, let me tell you what happened with this situation. Because, you know, Baba's hand is always in everything. My challenge was to try to not let it stew in me for as long as it did. It passed after like 4 hours, but
that's pretty good.
I mean, I was
that's
doing it for
great.
a long time. But, so I'll just, for some of those of you who are in India, in America, the way our health system works, insurance coverage determines whether you get health care. I mean, unless it's an emergency, that's a whole nother thing. So this child, the insurance company is saying, no, we don't agree with this treatment. And I'm saying you should give the treatment. So the disagreement was there. And then when I shared with the mom, because I was feeling so much for this mom, they're all in crisis right now. And I said, I'm sorry, this is what happened. I did the best I could, but you know, you could appeal it, which means it goes through a court process, and that's a whole lot of trouble for families to deal with. And then she says, well, you know, My husband's work has a second insurance. So we had only used my insurance for our child. My husband work employer has another insurance. Maybe we could use that. All right, so usually this takes maybe 20, 30 days to figure out. Within 24 hours, the other insurance kicked in and said, we'll cover the treatment.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that? That's Baba. I know, I have never had that happen, ever.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. No, what, you know, Baba said, one of my favorite lines, whatever you do with love has perfect results.
Mm.
You know, and that love kind of carried through all the way to the 24-hour approval and everything. It's
Yeah.
That is absolutely beautiful. That's a great story. Thank you.
Hey, I wanted to say something. I see Namrata in the lower right corner. I don't know if it's on your screen. Namrata and her sister Shraddha are there, but they're, you know, they're behind closed doors. We can't see them.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Namrata.
Jai Baba, Jeff.
Jai Baba Shraddha, nice to see you. What about Namrata? Can she speak?
Jai
I
Baba,
think,
Jeff.
yeah.
Oh, I hear her. Yeah. Beautiful. Shraddha lives in California. Namrata lives in Pune.
Ah.
We're in California.
I'm in Santa Clara, Marie.
Oh, I used to live in Mountain
Bayam.
View, Palo Alto. I know that area well. My son was born
Oh.
at Stanford Hospital.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. I'm glad to see you two together.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Jeff, did you see Alan's question there?
No, what's Alan's question?
He asked you a question. I think he texted you. Alan, you want to read it for him?
The chat box.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what does it mean to remember Baba?
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw you a curveball. Well, you know, because I was looking at a quote that's up there on my desk, and Baba said, "Remember me, and I am there with you." And I was like, well, I'm saying your name a bunch of times, Baba, but how come I don't feel you? And I started to think, well, maybe it's not all up here, and maybe it's not even like in necessarily my heart space, but like somewhere else. I don't know how to remember him. I feel like it was such a simple directive, but it was also quite layered. I was just wondering if you could speak on that.
Yeah. I mean, you can remember Baba without feeling him. I mean, you don't have to make it dependent upon feeling. I mean, Baba said to Arnavas, I didn't ask you to feel me, I asked you to love me. Think about that line. I didn't ask you to feel me. Because then if it's all based on feeling, then when the feeling isn't there, then you feel like you're distant from Baba. Whereas it's not the case. I'll describe a scene, and I've described it probably to you before, but it was a very turning point in my life. You know, the Mandali, because they are devoted to Baba, things come from them that can be pivotal in your life, and yet they may not have any awareness of the effect it had on you. But so I'll describe this, where this is back in the 70s. I was Mara was saying goodbye to this Western lady who was going back at the end of her pilgrimage, and I was there. Mara was on the veranda, and we were standing below, and she said, and I was just there just to say goodbye because I was going to be going back to Marabad, and so she's encouraging this woman, take Baba with you, remember him, he loves you, and all that. And at one point she said, sometimes we feel, this is Mara, always radiating love from Mara. But she says this about her own experience. She says, sometimes we feel very empty and depressed, but we know Baba wants us to be cheerful. so we make efforts to be cheerful. Now inside, I'm a young kid, and I'm thinking, she has been with the source of all love, shoulder to shoulder for decades and decades. And she hasn't mastered the experience of a joyous heart full of Baba's love all the time. Then love must be, this is what I thought, love must be different from what I thought. And because, see, up to that point, I felt, if I would feel Baba in my heart and that warm feeling and everything, then I'd lose it. And I thought, oh my God, what did I do wrong? I was feeling Baba so much this morning, and this afternoon I'm not feeling him. So I was getting thrown back and from ocean to shore, ocean to shore. But after that, I never felt bad about whether I felt empty or unhappy or anything. I saw that love is different from our moods. And we say, oh, well, I'm in spring, moods kind of cycle through us, like moods are in springtime, and we want to hold, moods stay in springtime, but it moves into summer. And then it gets dry and the baking sun and everything. Oh my, now it's fall, it's cooling off. Oh, it's the fall, and now it's winter, everything's dying. We're chasing our mood when our love is really behind it. Because even though Mara might have felt depressed or maybe bored or something, all the time she's radiating such love to us. It's flowing out of her. So her mood and her love are two different worlds, if you know what I mean. They're on two different tracks. So feeling Baba, Baba said that, Artavas, I didn't ask you to feel me, I asked you to love me. Would you help anybody make sacrifices for someone's spiritual, I'm speaking to Alan, would you make sacrifices for someone's spiritual life that might help them? Even if you didn't like them especially, but you had an opportunity.
Yeah.
You would make those efforts for them, so that you actually have you're concerned about their spiritual well-being, even though your emotions don't like them or don't feel much for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Love is a different. I've said before, you could be very depressed, and someone could scream outside your house in danger, and you'd run, in spite of your being in a terrible mood, you'd run out to see what you could do to be of help. So that act of love wasn't dependent upon your mood. But for some reason, we always consult we wake up in the morning, well, Jeff, how do you feel? If I look at my sanskars, well, I feel kind of groggy and I don't feel that enthusiastic about today. But if I tune into the love, hey, this is a possible day I can be loving and remember Baba. So I can go to that part of myself, but somehow we take the reading from our sanskaras,
Well, speaking on sanskaras, this is a question that
our conditioning, huh?
This is a question that merges into the sanskaric part. I think the other day you were mentioning about how our sanskaras are. I think it was in the discourses. How sanskaras can have this sort of like these waves, like and I'm starting to experience it myself, where like I can spend maybe like an entire day really kind of focusing my attention on Baba to the point where I can tell when my day starts to slip into like this pull of like all this. Wouldn't say it's not suppressed, but it's more like this spring load of like sanskars that are ready to fire off if I want to slip, and it's just ready to kind of go into the thing that I'm sort of been reverting my thoughts to Baba about. You know what I mean? Like there's this I don't know if you know what I mean. There's this wave of sanskaras that kind of come back if you sort of just say, well, today I'll just I'll take it easy, you know. I thought about Baba yesterday and the day before, you know. I think I'm all right. And then I find my mind just spins out. I mean, it's like the wave of these things are still there, and the current is very strong still. And so I think that's just to speak on that part of the walking the edge of that sharp sword.
Yeah. I mean, Darwin used to talk about the importance of maintaining your momentum.
Ah,
Because if you don't, if you don't kind of like concentrate on your momentum, your inborn inertia will take over, and it's hard to kind of get going once you kind of lose your momentum. So it's not like there's there was a great quote. I don't know if shoot, I don't know if I can find it, but where Rumi says, "Hoist the sail." When you hoist the sail of the ship of your being, you'll be carried to harbor of grace and wonder. But if you don't hoist your sail, and it will be picked up, the master's grace will carry you to harbor after harbor of grace and wonder. But if you don't hoist your sail, you'll just drift with the tide of the world. Meaning, you know, when you relax your momentum and effort, you know, you can drift, you can fall right back into your sanskaric ways. I mean, that doesn't mean you don't take a rest or a break, but yeah, if you lose that momentum, it's then you can kind of things stick to you a lot more. You know, things become a little more binding. That's what I find. So you got to keep Baba's, not just Baba's name, but Baba's remembrance and all of that keeps a lot of your sanskaras from your heavier sanskaras from pulling you down.
pretty addicting, you know. I feel like it feels like an addictive sort of like almost as if you think about like anything addictive in this world, it's like I don't know, like candy or something. It's like it's so easy to go into kind of cheap thoughts where you know that you could kind of distract yourself or something. It just seems like I'm really getting into like wow, my mind is very addictive pockets in there. Like you know, it's very subtle. Like, well, come on, you know, we worked so hard today, and it just like pulls the sails kind of going down, and you know, I'm starting to be like, yeah, maybe it's a nice resting spot, but meanwhile, I'm getting sunburned, you know, and Bob is, you know, calling. So, yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. No, momentum is very important, and the momentum is in your heart area, and you can sometimes tell whether you're at a low ebb, your vitality is low, and needs to be stepped up. If you have a centrifugal force going with your vitality, then things can't stick to you; they fly off. I mean, the negative sanskars and the heaviness just flies off. It does. But if you you don't have any momentum, then they kind of come in and crowd in and rob you of your oxygen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, Darwin. I mean, they were all. Well, just to give you an idea, I used to work out at Merazad, and I would get there in the morning and I would see the mandali, and the mandali would, anticipating the pilgrims coming. I would see them kind of lumbering around, really kind of bent over, exhausted. Then, by 9 o'clock, they're a little bit more upright. By 10 o'clock, they're kind of got a little bit of movement, a little bit of spark in them. By 11 o'clock or whenever, they're ready. They receive all the pilgrims and they embrace them. They tell stories, and everything. Then after the buses go, I would still be there working, and and afterwards they would just be bent over, and they wouldn't talk. hardly minimal talk. The place, Mirzad, became like an ashram, like some way up in the Himalayas somewhere. Very peaceful, and everybody, I could tell they were all trying to regenerate, get their momentum going for the next day. I mean, it was a great labor of love that they were doing. But you wouldn't see it because as the pilgrims, they just saw them looking so alive and bright and everything. But afterwards, they had to work at regenerating. Otherwise, they would just, they'd probably be flat on their backs.
And did you meet Padre, by the way? I forgot. I never. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You did.
We all did. Yep.
We all did. Wow. Oh man, I had a dream about the guy a couple nights ago. I think it just was making me laugh, even though he's being really stern.
Yeah, he was.
That's really funny to have somebody be so stern and serious, sincere, but I felt his lightness in the heart. It was just a different kind of thing.
Yeah. A lot of that was mock sternness. I'll give you, I mean, I don't know if I've given this example, but Bao Shuri, I don't know, he may have gotten it from Baba. It said there are 3 types of persons. One is a peach. It's soft on the outside, but then there's a pit on the inside. Then there's the nut. It's hard on the outside, but it's soft on the inside. And a grape, it's soft on the outside and soft on the inside, like Erich or Mani. Padre was like a nut with the softness on the inside. So there was this one guy that came across to India overland, and he arrived at Mehrabad disheveled. His hair, his clothes were dirty. He looked, didn't look that great. And a friend of mine, a guy named Tom Fortson, he asked, where's the tomb of the Avatar? And Tom says, it's up on the hill there. Just follow that way. But then Tom said, well, he decided to accompany the guy up there. It was his first time going to the tomb. As they're going up the hill, about halfway up, Padre's coming down the hill. Very striking figure. He's really strong, kind of the embodiment of masculinity. And they approach it. When they get within 20 feet of him, Padre says, "Is this the way you dress when you come to the tomb of the Avatar?" And the guy says, "I don't let anybody tell me how I dress when I go to the tomb of the Avatar." Padre looks over at Tom and says, "I like this guy." So there, there's his toughness, and there's the softness. He knew when to bow before a true sentiment. I don't let anybody tell me how I dress when I go to the tomb of the Avatar. And he could recognize that truth, and he had to kind of pay respects. So that's kind of the way Padre was. Seemingly stern, but very soft on the inside. But basically, really hard on the outside.
Yeah. He was yelling at these people I was listening to, and because the guy was he wouldn't stop going on this thing about how he thinks that people in Mehrabad and Mirzad are doing rituals, and Padre was like, "What rituals?" And then he was just like, the guy kept going and going, and finally. Padre was, he was like, he got to the point where he was like, why would you ask me this stupid, idiotic question? What brings you people here? And he was just like going on this thing, and I was like, whoa. And then all of a sudden, he kind of like turns the dial all the way down. And he's like, one time we were here with Baba, and a couple of us started arguing. And he just kind of flipped the whole conversation into this story about the men Mandalay in the early days fighting, and Baba, kind of just snapping them out of it and being like, "Do you remember who I am?" And it just kind of brought everybody in the whole, even me listening, like, "Whoa, I'm not here to listen." You know, I was getting involved in the drama of it, and then I was like, "Wait, like, what are we all doing here?" Oh, in that moment when he said that, you know, it was like,
Yeah.
we all remembered Baba when he it was like, it was very helpful.
Yeah. No, he was very colorful. Very colorful.
Quite different personalities in the mandali, amongst the mandali. Some is very strong on the outside, some is very soft on the outside. Were there any stories, Jeff, where there was a clash of personalities, and how those events unfolded, and how did what really how what do they ended up in?
No, I mean, there were a lot of clashes because Baba brought people from all different temperaments and backgrounds together under the same roof. And they had to, Baba's symbol for marriage was, this grinding way. Well, that extends to friendships too, especially the friendships they had. They had to deal with a lot of their expectation of how the others should behave. They had to kind of give up all of their expectations so that they could live more in harmony. But they were always having difficulty. Bob was always complaining about the disharmony amongst them. I mean, because they were very, they weren't just nice and polite. Baba kind of turned the volume up high enough that, some of the best things and worst things came out of them. It wasn't a tame, it wasn't kind of a mellow atmosphere. It was a very intense atmosphere.
Wow.
Jeff, do you by chance have any stories? I love Balmain too. I was in India twice, but I never got to meet him. And it wasn't until I started reading stories that he wrote himself that I just fell in love with his style of communication. And nobody ever talks about Balmain too.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time with Balna too. He was really a very sweet man.
I know I just thought he's
very pure and sweet and gentle. He would have had a hard time fighting some of the Baba's tougher mandali. He was, very. He wasn't very assertive, except in his private life with Baba. But he wrote beautifully. I think he captured, the flavor of Baba so beautifully. I remember, I mean, a lot of things, we talked a lot, but one of the things that I remember from Bal, when they would see Baba, well, as we see Baba in the photographs in the, in the latter years, Baba looks, kind of suffering and tired and weary and everything. But Bal would say, Baba was so beautiful, mesmerizing, you could not take your eyes off of him. The photographs don't do any justice to what they were seeing. They just could not take their eyes off of him. I mean, they're basically seeing divinity.
Yeah, divinity. Sacredness. I mean, it's sacred.
Yeah.
Beauty.
And even when Baba was at his seemingly weariest and most in such great suffering, there was a beauty there that was riveting. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's a video of Baba. I think it was maybe Monty's videos of Baba, like maybe 1966, in the garden and everything. And he's holding like this little goat, this little baby goat, and Mara is there above him,
Yeah, I see that.
their head on him, and they're all like trying to take pictures with him. But just to see him live, it's very interesting because he looked really, really, I mean, to me personally, he looked very, very, very tired, very, very tired. And then, I mean, I would think looking at him a year later, you would see a Baba that's even more exhausted. But then that year later was when he made that video with Van Gasteren, and he was super like there. It was just like the color was in his face, and he just seemed to change even from shot to shot almost. I was like, you looked really exhausted sitting down, Bob. And then he got up and he was kind of holding Mara's arm, and it was like his face it was just, I don't know, just the fact that he he would look like super exhausted old man, and all of a sudden like bright and like through the video. I mean, that's all I can really go off of, but his form was pretty majestic.
Yeah, we are so lucky that Bob was so natural that you got to see. He wasn't like the robust Christ, strong and virile and everything. He led a life for older people. So the older people, he's one of them as well as people like you guys, you and Jake, you're energetic and ready to take on the world and everything. No, I mean, that's very compassionate that we have him, because some older people are going to see Baba in that way, and he is one of them.
I never thought about that. That's very...
Yeah, it's... Oh, Prakash, you heading out, huh?
No, Rakesh is actually.
Oh, Rakesh. Oh.
Yeah, Rakesh is heading out. He has something.
Oh, yeah, because he was up early.
Actually, I have a question, couple of things. I mean,
yeah.
If you have some thoughts, you can just, Baba, while talking about mind and heart, and he talks about accelerating feelings to counter the rush of thoughts and, bring them into some sort of balance. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, now, I mean, Baba said, I don't have the exact quote, but thoughts sped up and heart slowed down. This isn't an exact quote, is mind. Thoughts slowed down and feelings sped up is heart. That's what you're referring to. Now, it's not the excitement in the heart, it's more the enthusiasm in the heart. Enthusiasm, the deeper feelings are tranquil based. The deeper, and the emotions of, are excitement based. Lust, greed, anger, jealousy, fear, retaliation, they're all excitement based. And they feed the mind actually. But the enthusiasm, generosity, humor, kindness, empathy, and everything, they're tranquil based. They're both occupying space in the heart. If you can get your consciousness over into the higher feelings, you might say, of empathy, compassion, generosity, patience, and everything, then the mind naturally slows down. It can even basically stop. Or it's if you're over in enthusiasm, your mind becomes your servant. because it wants to try to carry out and help you carry out your enthusiasm. You know what I mean? It slows way down. And that's the best place. You know, if we can move our consciousness over to that part of our heart, it's very near to the divine.
I mean, one approach I remember having heard is that you try to meet everybody apparently for the first time. You know, even though you know this gentleman, this person, I mean, whosoever it is, but if you can only try to get into that particular state where you try to meet the person for the first time, then I guess a lot of these things perhaps are possible to do. Is that something that
What do you
works?
mean by, you mean imagining that you're meeting somebody you've met many times before,
Right.
but
So
that you,
basically, yeah, removing the background. I mean, we always
yeah,
build a sense of, you know, I mean, we have judgment-based,
yeah,
you know, thought process going on whenever we see somebody.
yeah. Yeah, ideally, if you bring to somebody the negative past you've had with them, it's never really going to go that well.
That's very true. But it's not easy though. I mean, it just
Yeah.
doesn't work all the time.
But Erich told me one time, if you see somebody, I had an ongoing problem with somebody I was close with, but every time we tried to work on this issue we had, it always got worse. We weren't able to resolve it. And I mean, and years went by. It continued to be a source of conflict. So I brought this up with Erich when I was in India. And you know, this ongoing thing. And he said, go back and act as if nothing ever happened. And I went back and I just, hey, how you doing? Hey, what's going on? What you been doing and everything. I just went on that. And that person was so relieved to kind of start anew that they jumped aboard and we just started anew, and we didn't try to resolve that. And ever since we've been very close, you know.
That's true. Actually, we create a wall unnecessarily, and we were eager to jump over that, but we stay behind till something kicks it off. You know, just like what you said.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that wouldn't necessarily work with every person, but it certainly worked with that person, because we had a love, but the love was getting blocked by this ongoing conflict. And so, you know, by just going and acting as if nothing happened, we were able to tune into just the love for its own sake, and we got back on track, you might say.
Thank you.
So, I mean, you can do that actually with people. You have an argument with somebody in the morning, and you can just see them and act like nothing happened. And it works, you know.
It does.
Like instead of when they see you in the afternoon, you still, you know, you're still bringing up that stuff. It's possible to, I mean, I do it. I mean, it's possible to act like, just move on.
Yep.
I mean, of course, sometimes you have to work on things, but not every little stupid thing. You know, it's possible. Hey, Dave, where are you going? He's supposed to be mowing his lawn. I thought you were going to go. You're running off to mow the lawn?
No, I'm gonna go poop.
Oh, okay. We'll let you do that, but not on the lawn.
That's good. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. No, I mean, as the heart space opens up, there are priorities in there. And the higher the priority, the more the mind slows down, the more everything quiets down.
What do you mean by priorities? As the heart opens up, heart space opens up, there are priorities. What do you mean?
Where you put a higher priority on, say, impatience is the negative emotion, and its opposite is patience and tolerance.
I see.
Acquisitiveness is the lower emotion, and generosity is the higher emotion. You know, so they all have counterparts, and if you prefer the higher one to the lower one, you know, you're making a transition. You're raising your whole level of your life.
You know, there was a situation today where I got on the phone with a tenant, because I work in property management, and I got on the phone with a tenant, and she was particularly, you know, just wanted things done right away. She didn't have any hot water or something like that, and I was being as nice as I could, and it was one of those moments where I didn't say Baba's name. I was caught in between 3 different calls, and I just was like, yeah, I just got on the phone because she called, and so I just, you know, was a little bit taken aback when she was pretty assertive and pretty, you know, like this better happen, you know, in less than 2 hours. You better have somebody here now. I work in property management, and I'll tell you what, you know, and I was like, I just had to say, you know, I'll go ahead and try to find somebody, and then she kept going. One of those people that there's the loop thing was happening.
Yeah.
I was getting frustrated. So my way of expressing my frustration was saying, ma'am, like I said, I'll do my best. I'll talk to you soon, okay? And then she was like, okay, fine. She hung up on me. And so then I didn't want to help her. I felt this feeling of like, you know what? I don't even need to help you right now. You know, but I ended up calling my guy, and I said, hey man, can you be out there in the next hour? Somebody really needs your help. And something, you know, because I had remembered Bob. I remember I felt like I slipped, and I was like,
yeah.
And I said, you know, can you just help fit this couple out because they're having a hard time? And he's like, yeah, man, no problem. I'll have some lunch and go there. And so when I tried calling her back, she had blocked my number. So I had to call the next person who was her partner, which is, you know, her partner. So I called him, and I said, hey, this is, you know, Alan, and calling him, you know, and he was like, yeah, what do you want? And I did exactly the thing that you said. I pretended like nothing happened. And I said, hey, sir, how you doing? This is Alan, and just want to let you know somebody's going to be there in the next hour. All right, it's going to be all right. And then he was like, oh, well, all right. Thanks. I appreciate your you know. It just flipped it because I didn't have to like talk about it, you know. Just but sometimes, yeah, some of those people, I'm just not going to get. There's just not going to be that connection in a way that I prefer, you know. But
yeah. No, I mean, these are valuable skills. When Baba comes next, you're going to be, you know, you got to be able to get some people across, you got to be able to get Baba across the border into some hostile country, and you're going to have to push the buttons on some customs officials to get them across. And the knowledge of human nature is going to be invaluable in helping Baba to maneuver around in this world, say, you know. We're being trained.
I never thought about it that way, Jeff.
Yeah.
I like that.
Jay, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm done.
Yeah.
No, I just recalled a story. I mean, I wonder if it's relevant here, but Rustam Farahati, right? I mean, who stayed at Mirazad, interacting with Mudley and asking questions and compiled stories and all that stuff. And one of the stories is he talks about this acceleration of feelings or just generating this love within you. He talks about an incident when he used to drive his scooter from Samadhi down all the way to Lower Mehrabad. on the way, he would encounter a bunch of dogs who just keep running after him and keep shouting at him on a regular basis every day. So, I mean, and then, I don't know, but he probably talked to, Erich or somebody, or something in him prompted him to act slightly differently. This time, what he did was to actually stop wherever the dogs are. And then he started looking at them lovingly and with the real feeling inside for them. And when he did that, he noticed over a few days of time, the dogs stopped running after him and stopped barking, and then they would wag their tails and then try to come near him and stuff like that.
Wow.
And, yeah. And there's a story, actually. It's in one of the books on Real Treasure. And he said, that's how things work. And then it also works with that story of when Baba asked this gentleman, I forget his name again, he's in California, one of the Prem Ashram boys. He talks to his, the harvest, the things he plants.
Esfandia.
Esfandia, right? And then says, please give me a good harvest, good crop so that I can go to Mehrabad. And it works.
Yeah, Baba asked him to go around tree by tree in his orchard. And he had a bumper crop that year. Yeah. And all the other orchardists, there was some bad weather and everything, and it killed a lot of their cherry trees and everything. So he had he was the main supplier. Yeah.
I had this experience with Esfandiar at the Northeast Gathering once. He came to visit. I was maybe 16 or 17 at the time, and I remember sitting in the crowded room with lots of people listening, lots of adults listening to Esfandiar's talk. And I just felt, for me, I had, and still to some degree have this authority issue around, really being loving or present or having longings for God and things like that. And so I was kind of in my muck at that moment while Esfandiar is talking, feeling, unpleasant with the people around me or whatever, feeling just kind of low. And I remember thinking for one moment, as Esfandiar is telling his story about coming to Baba and talking about the experience on the mountain where he melted the snow and flowers grew up in the space he was sitting and all this stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, if he's really this high plane, on the high plains, can he hear my thoughts? And the second that I posed that question mentally, he shot me this look as if instantaneously he heard what I was saying internally.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out to some degree, made me a little shaky, a little nerved, to the point that I ended up didn't really know what to do with that experience. Rather, now I think I would have just sat there and try to maintain an inner connection with him, but I kind of got freaked out. So I left the building, went outside and lay down on the ground and remembered I had a just intense headache and just this mental grinding for quite a while after that experience. And then another experience related to this, not related with Esfandiar, but with Bao Kachuri, many years later, almost a decade later, let's say, I was in India and I'm about to leave to come home after an amazing trip that I've had. And I'm in the trust office sitting in front of Bao with two other guests that I was traveling with. And my mind was I was just in a complete mental struggle at that time. So disconnected from myself, from my body, not in a spiritual way, but just like in a very strong mental way. Depression, things of that nature. I was feeling very intensely at that time. And as I'm going over to say goodbye to Bao, I shake his hand, but I'm still just very disconnected, very much in my head. And I remember he shoots me a look while I have my hand in his hand, and he smacks my forearm as hard as he could, or quite strongly at that time. And he gives me this look like, wake up, like, where are you in yourself? Like, wake up. And I attribute, I didn't really think about this till just recently, tonight actually, but I attribute both of those experiences as being very important moments that supported, a big transition for my life, coming out of depression and not being so stuck in depression as I was much earlier in my life.
Yeah.
But two very powerful experiences around that dynamic of being so much in my head. But that experience with Esfandiar was amazing, just incredible. I
Yeah.
can feel it.
Incredible. Yeah, really. No, that it's it's almost like they know what finer tuning is, that they have perfect pitch. And they can tell if some of your guitar strings are off, and they might just bang you into tuning, not even if they're not even thinking about it. It just kind of comes out of them spontaneously. Sometimes. I mean, he might not have known why he banged you on the, he might have felt that you were a little bit out of sorts and just kind of, just slapped you on the thing, but not with, it's because they're tuned in with Baba, everything they do has, comes from a place of wisdom and knowledge, even if they themselves don't necessarily know what motivated him to do it,
That's a good point, yeah. Because I always attribute to them, they must know, or they must have known. But I can see your point that maybe they don't. They just respond to Baba within.
Or Baba through them can just put them aside and respond, and then retreat back into them,
Yeah.
But around them you get great help. I always found.
Yeah. I'll say that's one of the few regrets in my life. I don't feel like I have very many, but one of them is that I didn't take the time to take as much advantage as I could have from being around some of the great souls around Baba.
Yeah.
Remember one time in India, I went into Erich's cabin, and I sat down on Erich's bed, and was just in there kind of, I don't know, deep in thought. And Merwan comes in and sits beside me next to his bed, and he says, why have you come into this cabin? Or like, is there, do you feel a connection with my brother somehow for coming into this cabin? And like a fool, because I was so in my head and just stuck in my own self-expression, I said, no, I'm in here because I like the idea of mononash, the elimination of the mind. And while that may have been true on some part because I was tired of mentally suffering and whatnot, I so missed the opportunity to say, I really love your brother and I feel deeply connected to him. Tell me about him. Or just to build a relationship and an open line of communication rather than more of a closed off one. That was one of those moments that I regretted. And I have another moment I regretted with Merwan also, where he asked me, do I have any questions? And I was too stuck in myself to share, how do I get Baba's love? I was feeling a longing for Baba's love so intently, and I couldn't share that. I just felt stuck in myself. But so anyway, to your point, absolutely, that getting the experiences around people who are very close to Baba is really important.
And even if you don't do something, if you didn't respond the way you would like to, it's a clear lesson. You know what I mean? In other words, here's a very deeply devoted soul to Baba, and then there's your reaction. If they were just an ordinary person on the street, you wouldn't have quite the same reaction. But it comes out in real bold relief. There's this Esfandiar, and then there's the way you, or the Mandali, and the way you kind of were shy around them.
Yeah.
you wouldn't you wouldn't regret it if they were just ordinary people and you were shy around them. It brings it out all the more. I mean, you learn a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I do feel less of a holding back, a withholding from engaging and talking, asking questions, or saying what I really feel.
Yeah.
So, certainly.
But you speak very well now, and you're very open about what you're going through and what you'd like to know, and that's if they were here now, you'd be quite different. But
that's true. But you see, that's why I have you, Jeff. So you get to take that place.
I'm just relaying stuff,
It's true. No, I'm not suggesting that you are at the same.
Yeah.
I don't want to make you uncomfortable by putting you at a level that you're not.
No, I was a stenographer. I took down dictation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ironically, after all those experiences, I still had to do a lot of work to unleash a lot of what I withheld from.
Yeah.
But it's like those were like the signposts, not even the signposts, like the permissions or the giving momentum or allowing and opening up channels and whatnot. I find that kind of interesting. They weren't pure miracles that, turned made spontaneous change, but they were certainly very impactful.
Part of the stimulus for getting you. Yeah.
Very good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, well, I mean, I don't know if there are any other. Namrata, do you have anything to share or ask about? Whoop.
Hi, Jeff. Jehovah.
Yeah. How is your father doing?
They are fine. They are fine.
Yeah. Asha. Yeah.
Yeah, she's also fine. All fine. I was in today listening mode mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I will share maybe tomorrow something like.
Yeah. No pressure.
Yeah.
I just Shraddha has been coming to a lot of our gatherings. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a question like maybe how to love Baba is one of the biggest question every time it pops up. I at times try to make him constant companion, interacting with him most of the time, but at times I feel that no, probably that is not enough. For sometimes I even get into so much of with work related stuff, with so much of worldly stuff, and then I tend to feel like no, that is really missing. That is not enough, of course. So
your work is so demanding that it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And you're probably working 60 hours a week or 50 hours a week.
Yes, that is a condition.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing, and I told this to Shraddha, but and it might be helpful to any working person. When I was before I started working at the center, I worked as a house painter with this friend of mine. He had a house painting business. And but back there in that period of my life, I was kind of like a Baba remembrance machine. I was saying Baba's name. I was thinking of him all the time, and I was kind of really on fire with that. So that when I was painting these houses or sanding and everything, I was saying Baba's name with each stroke, and I was just, that was kind of the way I was carrying on. And so we were painting houses that really required for rich people, so we had to do really excellent jobs. And what happened is then 6 months later we were in India, And we were found ourselves, this buddy of mine and I, and sitting with Erich just outside Mandalay Hall. And my friend said, Erich, you know, I'm a house painter. And hours go by where I'm just, you know, focusing on the painting. I'm not even remembering Baba. You know, I just forget him for hours. This is the most important thing, that he's here and all that, and I'm just wasting my time. Well, you know, what can I do about that? And see, now that wasn't my problem. I was just Baba, 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 you know. So Erich said, in the beginning, it's important to remember Baba, to say his name, to see the movies, to go to the places where Baba has been, to hear the stories. But in time, it becomes most important to forget yourself. When you forget yourself in something, Baba can live through you. You may not be even aware of it. You won't be aware of it. You're so focused on what you're doing. And then when after you come out of your focus on what you're doing and you wake up, then Erich said, when you remember to remember him. When it comes to, when it comes around to, oh yeah, I'm off of work, I can remember Baba. I can remember I'm free now. When you remember to remember him. So what I mean is that, so he said, so get into your work, do your painting, lose yourself in that. And then when you come out of it, then remember Baba. And I remember I asked the Margaret Crass dancers, you know, they were in these very famous productions and everything. And I asked them, when you were out in these productions dancing, were you remembering Baba out there? And they said it didn't work. They would remember Baba before the performance, then they would get into the dance, and then they would remember Baba afterwards. But it didn't work to remember Baba when they were in the middle of their dance.
Right.
And Adi, when he was young and he was going to college, and he said to Baba, you know, I can't remember you and do my studies at the same time. Baba said, well, no, remember me before your studies, then study, and then remember me afterwards. I mean, the reason I say this is this was very helpful to me because I was remembering all the time, and that wasn't really good. I needed to forget myself in things. In other words, if I played a volleyball game, before I would be, remembering Baba out there in the volleyball court. And so they relieved me, but what Erich said kind of relieved me, and I could just get into the volleyball game, forget myself in the volleyball game, and then after the volleyball game is over, when I'm walking off, then I remember, oh yeah, now's the time to remember Baba. Right. But the reason I say that is, you're not necessarily forgetting Baba by doing your work, even though the work is entirely worldly, so to speak. I mean, it may be you're, doing computers and all that. But if you do it with one-pointedness, Baba can live through you, even if you're not aware of it. In fact, he does live through you when you're one-pointed about what you're doing and wholehearted. Does that make any sense?
Yes, of course. Right. That is really good point, to remember when you remember to remember him. That's.
Yeah. And you won't probably be able to do your job and remember Baba at the same time.
Right.
And that'll be a strain if you're trying to do both. But when you need to take a break and sit back, remember Baba, and then go back and work on your computer or whatever you're doing. I forgot what your work is, but get into it, do it and everything, and then take those breaks.
Right.
I think I mentioned, Shraddha, I think I mentioned that to you, didn't I?
Yes, you did. And
Yeah.
that's so helpful, Jeff. It just takes so much burden off because I would feel very guilty when I forgot about Baba during work. And I think it's a beautiful point that when you are working, you forget yourself. And then you start your work with remembering Baba and then end it with remembering Baba. And of course, everything is Baba after that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a great help for me.
Yeah, it's very
I was
useful.
coming from the other angle.
Yeah.
Too much remembrance.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Hey, well,
Thank
I think I better go. It is 12:22 our time, not California time, not Pune time.
oh my God.
Alan, you're gonna head. I think I'll head out. Dave, get out there on that the back 40 mode. Dinku, see you. Paula, are you still around?
Yes, Jeff. Looking forward to seeing you again
Yeah,
and hearing you.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, Paula. Yeah. Oh, Anna, is it Anahita? Yeah. Good. And Payam, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just sending you a chat saying thank you. J
Okay.
Baba, everyone.
Yeah.
Signing off.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I mean, I can't believe it that I would normally be just sitting here all evening because I'm the only one on the center up in this area, you know? Well, I mean, it's all right, but it's nice. It's like hanging out with you folks.
It is nice.
It is. It's lovely, Jeff. It's really lovely.
You know?
Yeah. I have, yeah, I couldn't get off. I have stuff to do, but I can't do anything right now.
Yep, same here. I am glued on to my phone here.
Yeah, and you probably, you didn't make dinner and, you know, didn't do the washing. And...
Kitchen's a mess. I can't do anything. It's
Me
okay.
too. I haven't started my day yet because I'm glued to my phone.
Wow. Oh, okay. Well,
I'll take off too,
yeah,
guys.
see you, Prakash.
Jai Baba.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you, Alan. Yeah.